So this rather horrific state of affairs is my 8-inch quad, which spent 3 weeks in a maize field and presumably got run over by a tractor when said maize field was cut down. And as you can see, it's completely trashed. And during that 3-week period, we had really heavy rain. So I've just basically left this guy on my bench until I could be bothered sort of tinkering with it to see what is still working. Because at the time, the thing that bugged me more than anything was that I could have dealt with losing the quad, but the gutting thing was that the GoPro disappeared from the front end, and as you can see, there's a lot of rust. It's just absolutely knackered. Let's see if I can get this guy open and we'll see if anything actually lives. If nothing else, I'm hoping that the receiver and ESC still work, and I suspect the motors will be okay, providing that the screws haven't rusted too much inside them, which might make life tricky getting things off. So this is going to be what happens when your quad has been sat in the rain for 3 weeks and attacked by a tractor. I never really got a chance to fly this guy beyond a few packs, but c'est la vie. You live and learn. Or I say you live and learn. Chances are if I'm pushed for time again, I'll probably be stupid enough to do the same thing. When you've been flying for a long time, you sort of get a little bit complacent, and that is always when sod's law says something's going to go wrong, and any experience that you have does not matter at all. Anyway, so thank God for aluminium standoffs. So, got a broken Lethal Conception lipo pad. We've got a broken Gepor C pad, and in here you can see the rather creative way that this has been put together. So let's just break this guy open and see what's going on in here. So you can see we've, in the crash, this lead has come disconnected, which is not very good. And this has got 3M foam tape on it, which is super strong. If you give it time to get sticky, let's get these connectors out. So that's one. Turn my soldering iron up. Fairness to the Gap, despite being run over by a tractor, the only bit that's really broken is the top plate, and these front standoffs have bent back. But of course I was running it without the camera plates, although in fairness I doubt that would really stop a tractor running over it. kind of curious. What I want to do is just plug it in, but I can't do that. You see, it's bent all the screws back. Antenna survived. Was a good start. It's going to be quite a boring video this, but think of it as quad ASMR. Or should I say quad ASMR. Alright, I'll get this out of here. Lost my GPS as well somewhere along the way. Right, what have we got? So get the receiver out. As we can see, what have we got? Can't even remember how I wired this. Right. So our receiver was being powered from the 5 volts from this little guy. And if I bring this camera closer down for you, right. I hope you can see this, it looks really dark, but where is all this shit going? Right, soldering iron should be warmed up. Let's just quickly desolder this receiver. And that is the GPS. All right. Kind of annoyed that that battery leader's come off. It must have hit with a hell of a force. It's ripped the whole pad off, which is not good news and a bit of a shame. You can see it's basically ripped that pad off here, and I'm betting, due to Sod's law, that this hasn't got pads on the other side. Right, let's get my surgery kit out. That's one. That's two. That's three. Don't know where the other one has gone. And this was this weird, is it Racer Star? Right, so that looks okay. What I really want to know is if this ESC has got pads on the other side. Let's get a bit of solder on. Let's just take these outer wires off. Don't use this solder underneath like you can see here. I know it looks really pretty, but my opinion on this is, why would you run noisy motor wires beneath your ESC? Whether there's any truth to that, I don't know, but to me it kind of makes sense. I know that people do this a lot. You tend to see this on Facebook in a sort of, ta-da, look at my pretty ESC wiring. But it's something I try not to do, but I did in this case, for whatever reason I can't remember. Need some more solder on there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get these motor wires off. Sorry, it's really hard to do this on camera. Going to get these motor wires off and then have a look at this ESC. And I'm getting the motor wires off for two reasons really. One, I don't want these motors to get any current through them in their state at the moment, because they're absolutely caked in basically mud and clay. And two, I just want to see what's going on under here. So I've used these rubber spacers, which worked quite nicely. And I used two massive capacitors as well, which are holding this guy in place here now. Let's get some solder on this guy and see if we can get these off. I'm not being particularly careful here. I mean, the thing's in an absolute complete mess, so it's pointless being too pristine with it. I just want to get it into a place where I can do what I want to do. Get you guy off as well. Right. And of course, it doesn't have any pads underneath, you bastard. Oh, that's annoying. Right, so that ESC is basically dead as a doornail, unless I can find a small bit of trace to solder to, which I possibly can, but to be honest with you, I would rather not. So yeah, that's Fuchs, which is kind of annoying because this bit is fine, but I bet you they don't sell this bit on their own. Let's get these bloody motors out of the way. And I soft mounted the ESC, as you can see, not for any reason other than vibration kills ESCs more than anything else. You can see I've used quite a bit of padding around this guy just to protect it, because it was sat against the standoffs. And I absolutely love 3M foam tape. It is the stuff of legends. So that has actually survived very well, because obviously the majority of it is copper. So let's just quickly remove the remaining. Is that actually powered? In fact, no, let's get this guy out. Problem with these drivers is you end up with other things stuck in here. Right, so I'm just going to take this flight controller off, and this is the Matek F7 Mini, the one that you can convert into a 30 by 30.5 standard board, or as I've done, (20 by 20), and I used this because it was claiming 8S, which was the thing that I wanted to test, but I never got round to, because I lost the bloody thing prior to actually getting anywhere with it. You can see that on this flight controller you do a lot of soldering on the side. It's a really sort of unusual little thing, but I kind of like it. Right, so what have I got on here? Let's get this crossfire unit out of the way. Again, I'm not really being particularly careful here. I'm just getting everything off as reasonably quickly as I can. Right, let's just set this out of the way a sec. What I'm going to do is just spray it with some sort of rubbing alcohol. And it should be thoroughly dry by now. But let's just get any sort of crap off it. Because as this was a sort of quick and dirty build, chasing a period of good weather, I kind of didn't spend any time conformal coating everything. Right, so that's that done. I'm going to do the same with this guy, and the reason I'm using this alcohol is simply because it's really good for cleaning and it'll evaporate pretty much straight away, so I don't have to worry about getting water and shorting out. Right, now I've cleaned it up, what I'm going to do, you won't be able to see this, but I've basically got a battery charger with a USB port on it, and I'm going to plug it in to the flight controller, see what happens. So that's all appears to be okay. Right, just gonna remove the ground and power, because with the VTX I was powering it via the flight controller. Right, that's off. So basically, I've removed the live currents, and I'm going to do something really stupid now, which I suggest you don't do. But I'm kind of lazy, so I am going to do. Where's that antenna gone? So I'm basically just going to screw this antenna back on. Right. Let's just put this on here in case there's any metal or crap on the floor. I'm going to get a battery, and there's my negative, and there's my positive. And there is my VTX, which also is working so far. Yeah, so that's on 800 as it's getting very hot. Right, so it looks on face value, obviously I'll plug into Betaflight and check them properly, but it looks like the flight controller and the VTX work fine. And next I'm going to check crossfire on my donor board. And basically let's keep this guy around because it's handy for flashing. Can you see that? It's handy for flashing ESCs. And it's also handy for doing things like this. So I'm basically just going to quickly and dirtily slap these on here. And we'll stick that on there. And then, where's that battery gone? Plug it in. Yeah. Travesty of travesties. My DYSF4 is no longer working. Right, as my DYSF4 has decided it's not going to work, let's just forget about the crossfire, because I'm sure if anything is going to be alright, then this guy, which was pretty insulated, is going to be. Right, so we've got some components that we've saved. Let's get this stuff out of the way. Keep these little plastic hex nuts because they're really handy. Clearly clearly the Matek MMCX to SMA connector is less happy. C'est la vie. Right, motors. Bloody Nora, look at the state of them. Sorry, keep knocking the camera. Let's get these props off. So these are the 7-inch Cyclone props which I started out on before I was planning to go to 8-inch props, which I'm glad I didn't use actually because they would cost me an absolute fortune. Having said that, I've got no quad to actually use them on, so I don't suppose it really would have mattered. And these motors are properly sealed up, and the motors are the bit that concerns me actually, because if I remember rightly they had really small bolts holding the bell on, and as they have clearly rusted, as I can see, I may have quite a bit of trouble getting them off. Right, so there's my massive capacitors out of the way. Let's turn this over. Final prop off. Let's cut these guys off. I should say we'll cut this one off. It's a bit like surgery, this. It's kind of, this must be what it's like to be a doctor. But I'm guessing they probably use better tools than these knackered wire cutters I'm using. Right, see if we can unscrew. As you can see, the bolts, or I should say the screws, are completely seized up and rusted, as you would expect. Just lie still for me, sir, while I give you a light pedicure and headbutt the camera for the 50th time. Right. Will you come out without breaking? Or will I need to? Oh no. Oh, happy days. I'm really scared about stripping this. I could just dunk this in water, but I'd rather... Oh, you bastard, it's not coming. Alright. Right, so what I'm going to do... So I'm just going to leave that to soak in, and then because it's going to be the same on every quad, I mean you can see, well, you won't be able to see, but the set screw is completely rusted on that one, and this guy, can't even see it because there's that much crap. Right, so I've cleared that up. What I'm going to do is just... Don't recommend spraying your motors with WD-40, by the way, because chances are you probably have a fire. So I'm only doing this to just loosen everything up, and then of course I'll clean them down properly. Later on. Right, I'm going to leave that to soak in and hopefully do its job, and then we'll take the motors apart and see what the score is and whether they will still run. I'm hoping they will, but yeah, not too bad so far. If I come away with this and I've only lost half an ESC, that'll be a good state of play. I'm kind of quite impatient, and what I really want to do is get this screw out, because I want to have a look and see what the damage is inside. I'm hoping, because everything is so I'm just putting a ton of force on, but turning slowly. I think, yeah, I've got it. Well done, Racer Star. Right, so there's that little spacer. And what I want to do is get a bolt and just get this out if I can. There. Right, so we can see, I don't know whether that's rust on the stator or not, or whether it's just discolouring. Hoping it's not rust. It certainly looks like everything is a little bit oops. Right, again, I'm going to squirt them with WD-40. Don't do this and run your motors, because you run the risk of having a fire. But in this case, because there's obviously a ton of pollutants and God knows what in here, I think it's probably a good idea just to let these guys soak. And to be honest, I'm not an expert at this, I'm just making this up as I go along. So feel free to shout if you would do differently. But somebody said it would be interesting to do what I would consider to be quite a boring video, unless you, as I said, you've got this on in the background while you're doing something else. But I was asked and I obeyed. Contrary to what my missus says, I actually do sometimes. Should have brought my missus in actually. She's an archaeologist, or was for many, many years. She's worked all around the world. And her masters and what have you is in sort of archaeological chemistry and physics, which basically is dealing with stuff like this in such a way that you don't damage, well, in her case the artifact, in my case a quad. I've got to say, when I did the review for this frame, I was trying to be as neutral as, or should I say as neutral as, oh shit, as neutral as I possibly could be, because you've got to bear in mind this is a really cheap frame, which in fairness kind of suited the purpose I was using it for, but I would not want to buy this particular frame myself. It's just a really dull frame. It doesn't really have anything amazing or interesting or exciting about it in the slightest. It's just 4 arms and a top plate, really. There's not a lot else to say about it. But if you're on a tight budget, obviously that might be, oh bollocks. So this guy's already rounded off before we start. I wonder what's happened there. Right, so that's not going to be easy. So what I'm going to do is get the rest of them off. And I'm going to apply some more. I'm going to leave that. And then I suppose we could drill it out. I mean, I can try heating it up with a solder iron, which should remove the Loctite, but the head for some reason is already really rounded on that. I can't really be arsed drilling it, so that might be the end of using these mortars. I was quite happy to use them again, but to be honest, they're not really a size that I would use on a 7-inch or a 6-inch. They'd just be too hungry for me. But yeah, let's pause this video and see. Right, I got the rest of the screws out by that one annoying motor. I've left it overnight just to let the WD-40 soak in, and before I play with it I'm just going to try one last thing. So I've basically got my soldering iron really hot. I'm just going to press it against the screw for a couple of minutes just to see if that frees it up a little bit, and then failing that I'm going to have to attempt to drill it out, which is not something I'm looking forward to, as my drill skills are somewhat rudimentary, and if I do go down that route I'm going to get bits of steel basically scattered all over the motor. So yeah, let's see how this does. Right, cleaned up 3 of the motors and they spin smoothly now. Couldn't get the screw out of this. I managed to get the kind of washer out, but not the screw, despite trying everything I could, including bashing, heating it up, just about everything. And I kind of tempted just to spin it up on another quad and see if I can get it running smoothly, and then just sort of leave it until I need to actually fix it. But I think it's too clicky to do that, even after being dunked and toothbrushed and all the rest of it. So that's going to be a job for another day. I'm just basically going to have to drill through there and see if I can get it out, which is a shame really, because the rest of them feel really smooth and they really are a pretty motor. So I'll leave them to dry as they've been dunked. It doesn't really matter, motors are kind of waterproof, if you will. It's not going to really do them any harm, but before I stick them on another quad I might as well just leave them to dry naturally and make sure there's no final sort of stickiness before I stick them on a quad. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So the only things we really lost were the original GoPros, etc., and potentially, if I bodge the solder, one motor. What I'm going to do with these motors, I don't really know, to be honest with you. I haven't really got another quad that's worthwhile putting them on, so maybe I'll see a 7-inch or something like that in the future that catches my fancy and use them on that. But for now I'm just going to sort of park them, fix this guy up, run them on another quad just to make sure they're okay, and then just park them until something catches my eye, because my brief experience with 8-inch didn't really make me want to build another one. It flew okay despite the wobbles, but I don't think it's really a size that I'll have a lot of time for. I'm still absolutely loving actually the Gap 7-inch, the bind and fly, because it's relatively lightweight and just sort of does what I want it to do, which is, you know, every now and again go out a little bit further, or, you know, be a bit more cinematic. But yeah, that's it. So bit of an autopsy, bit of a boring video, but perhaps this sent you to sleep in the fashion of one of those ASMR videos. Cheers guys, thanks, bye bye.